Good evening, and welcome to the 13th episode of the Grow with Grubbycup show on this, the last day of 2013. I don't know about you, but the number 13 appeals to me. Like when you peel a bit of fruit to get to the tender flesh inside. Well, hey, Alfred. Good evening, Well, hey, Alfred, are you planning on going out this evening, or are you going to stay in with the rest of the buds at the circle table? I shall be staying here at the castle this evening. Apparently the sheriff has a new probe device that, while maybe entertaining if used privately, shan't think it very nice to be subjected to such things in public in a roadblock type situation. Well, sure, Alfred, and that means we'll all be here. Yes.
Flash! This is Leif Malone, your wandering bard, with an important message from the La Mancha Safety Council. If you feel compelled to drink and drive this evening, restricted to Xbox and PlayStation only. Once again, this was Leif Malone with an important message from the La Mancha Safety Council.
You got some seeds to grow, he'll keep you in the know. Variety to claim, so baby, what's his name? He's the man to know. He'll make your garden grow. Grubbycup's his name. He's the man who'll make a change.
And that's Kelly Erickson singing the Grow with Grubbycup theme song. As always, thank you, Kelly. Welcome, gentle listeners. This is the 13th episode of the Grow with Grubbycup show. I'm your host, Grubbycup Stash, and we are broadcast on the DFZ radio network at dfzradio.com. Oh, Senor Grubbycup! Senor Grubbycup! I have a letter for you. Oh, hey, Sancho. Well, then it must be time for Dear Grubbycup. Gentle listeners, if you have a question and you'd like the chance to have it read on the air, please write to Dear Grubbycup, either at grubbycup.com or care of dfzradio.com. As always, that plant that shall not be named shall continue not to be named, so please exclude any direct references to it in your letter. The letter, she reads, Dear Grubbycup. Hello, folks. I just purchased Grubbycup's book on Amazon. In the short term, I'd like to get recommendations on the best cloning system for a small-scale indoor garden, 4x4 feet, with a cloning room of about 2x2 feet. I'm interested in speed, efficiency, and quality of the clone propagation. Thank you, Justin. Well, Justin, first of all, thank you for your letter. Ooh, see, we like to get letters. Well, the short answer is for sheer speed, aeroponics is probably your best bet. So either a commercial or a, do-it-yourself homemade aeroponic cloner will probably get you the fastest results. Oh, si, Senor Grubbycup. But if that is the short answer, I have a feeling that means there's a longer one. Well, yes, because it's kind of going to depend on what type of planting schedule you plan on using. And what I'm thinking of here specifically is, for example, if in your 4x4 room you're doing radishes and you plant, all your spots with the radishes at the same time, what's going to happen is that the entire garden is going to produce at the same time, and then you go and you harvest and clear the room and start over.
Ooh, I see. Like a farmer in a field.
You're right, Sancho. And this comes in handy if you've got some reason where you want all your radishes all at the same time. Now, this comes in handy if, for example, you want to do canning or what have you, where you want a whole lot of radishes at the same time. But an alternative is to spread out those plantings. So, in your 4x4 room, if you do a row every week or every couple of weeks, then what'll happen is that when the radishes ripen and are ready to be eaten, they'll come in a little bit at a time over a period of weeks. And if you keep adding new radishes as you rotate them through, then what'll happen is you'll get a trickle of radishes all the time instead of a lump sum of radishes all at once in a, traditional field harvest type thing.
But Grubbycup, why would that make any difference with making the cuttings?
Well, Sancho, it's going to make a difference because that's going to make a difference in how many clones you need at one time. If you're going to have all the plants in the garden at the same age, at the same stage, then you're going to want some way to clone enough to fill the garden, every time that you want to do a planting. So that means that you're going to clone less often, but you're going to clone in larger numbers. So you're going to want to make sure that whatever solution you come up with takes that into account.
Ooh, I see.
So let's say, for example, he was going to put 8 plants in his 4x4 room. He could either put in all 8 plants at the same time, and then they'll all be harvested at the same time. Or what he can do is put in, say, 2 plants every week or two, and then just keep putting an additional 2 plants in and taking and harvesting 2 plants as they harvest, as they ripen to harvest. In the one scenario, he's probably going to want to be able to make 10 or so clones at a time, and in the other, probably 4 or so. When taking cuttings, it's pretty common and considered to be a good practice to take a few more cuttings than what you need and select the healthiest and best to then nurture to maturity.
Ooh, I see.
Now, the technical term for taking cuttings is vegetative propagation, but that's kind of a mouthful, so I'm just going to keep saying cuttings. Anyway, to get the cuttings to root, there are what are called undifferentiated meristem cells along the trunk in that. And basically, these are kind of the equivalent of plant stem cells. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to keep the cutting hydrated. You're trying to keep it so that it has access to moisture because it doesn't have its own root system yet. But by the same token, it also has to have access to air. It needs to be able to not be drowned while you're trying to keep it wet.
Ooh, I hear you say it before. Keep it wet, but not too wet.
That's right, Sancho. Anyway, in an aeroponic system, basically the trunk is exposed and it is sprayed with moisture in some way or another. And that moisture then allows the plant to root, but because it's not sitting in water, it also has access to air. And then roots will develop, and the spray in the air will keep the roots hydrated. And not always, but genuinely, the roots will try to grow down to the nutrient solution if they can reach it, and then you wind up with this kind of a hybrid of an aeroponic DWC type thing. Ooh, see, I see. If you're looking at purchasing a commercial cutting rooting system, a couple of things you want to watch for is, one, since you have a small area and the most clones that you're going to need at a time is going to be, 10 or so, then you don't need a huge, 128 clone monster thing. You want to look at one of the smaller units, and along with the smaller units, there are a couple things to take a look for. One, if the pump sits in the nutrient solution or in the water, because by and large when you're just doing cuttings, really you can do it with plain water. If the motor sits in the nutrient solution, some of those cloners have a heat issue. They'll tend to heat up the water, which can be a hassle, because that can lead to stem rot, that kind of thing. And another thing to watch for, and this is something that I didn't really think to watch for until I tested one of the units. But one of the ones that I tried, since it's clear water, you would think that it having to go through a small aperture wouldn't be an issue. But what I found is that you really have to keep the solution for this particular unit absolutely clear, because it only comes through this one little hole, and if that hole gets clogged, then the pump just sits there and heats the solution and water doesn't spray, and it fails. So if you can, try to make sure that, that it's well designed. If you're going to do it yourself, there are several options. If you want to go aeroponics with it, you can get a little sprayer yourself. I've seen Dewey Misters used that way, or there are a variety of other, similar type do-it-yourself head sprinkler systems that you can come up with. Or you can do what's referred to as a bubble cloner, which uses air, and the bubbles, the popping of the bubbles gives the aeroponic effect. There are a large variety of ways to go about doing it. It's just a matter of, keeping the stems in that wet without drowning them. Oh, see? So you have to use the aeroponics? Oh, by no means. The reason that I brought up the aeroponic methods is because he mentioned in his letter that speed was an issue. You can clone in variety of rooting cubes and soil and perlite and a lot of other things. And there's no reason why not to use any of those as an option. Just start them a couple of weeks earlier than you would with with an aeroponic or that type of solution. If it's an option to you, actually what I'd recommend is try it both ways and see which one fits your personality and your style better. Along with the particular technique used, you can also use the rooting and cutting products that are on the market. And generally what these are is they are some sort of a rooting hormone, and they usually either use the axon NAA or IBA. And basically what they do is they give the instruction to concentrate more on root development and give a lower priority to leaf development. Oh, Senor Grubbycup, it is almost time for the commercials. You're listening to the Grow with Grubbycup show. I'm your host, Grubbycup Stash, and you're listening to us on DFZ Radio at dfzradio.com. Brought to you in part by Big Bubba Bob's Bait Shack. Oh, what you got there, Bob?
We got big buckets of bait.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Grow with Grubbycup show. I'm your host, Grubbycup Stash, and you're listening to us on dfzradio.com.
Hey, Grubby, before the break, you were talking a little bit about rotating implants versus starting them all at the same time. I thought that sounded quite interesting. I would like to hear a little bit more about that, please.
Sure, Herb. Let's take lettuce for an example. If I start my lettuce plants a week or so apart, then that means that when it comes time to harvest, I'll have a ripened head of lettuce every week or so for a period of months. And that suits me a lot better than if I suddenly had bushels and bushels of lettuce, because I can't go through that lettuce. I can't go through lettuce that fast, and lettuce doesn't store particularly well. So by planting them a few plants at a time, I can spread that harvest out for a longer period of time, and then harvest as I use type situation. One drawback to doing it in a perpetual style like that is that with a traditional harvest, there's a really nice time when you go in and you harvest all your veggies and everything you're going to take out of the garden, and then it's a really nice time to clean the garden at that point. And in a perpetual system where you're continuously adding plants and you're continuously removing plants, you're maintaining your housekeeping becomes more important, because you don't have that same kind of obvious spring cleaning when you can remove all the plants in the garden at harvest.
Well, yeah, Grubby, I can see where if you don't take all the plants out very often, then keeping up with that must be more important, because otherwise icky stuff will gather in your corners, and sometimes that's not very nice at all.
That's right, Herb.
Well, gee, Grubby, are there any other benefits to doing it in a perpetual style?
Yes, another nice thing about doing it in a perpetual style is that you make more efficient use of the available light in that and the available space. And the reason for that is that, let's say, for example, you have room in your little indoor garden area for 8 full-size tomato plants. The problem is that means that if you're going to start out with 8 very small tomato plants, that for the time you're waiting for them to get up to size, some of that light and space is going to waste because that's being reserved for the future space that the tomato plants are going to take up as they get larger.
Oh, I see, Grubby. So if you give them enough room where they get big later, then you start out with little plants, but then you just have a few little plants in your garden and not a whole lot going on.
Right, and with a perpetual rotating type schedule, you always have, a few large plants, a few medium-sized plants, and a few small plants. And that makes it a little bit more work as far as getting the heights correctly, and you may have to elevate certain plants to a greater or lesser extent, but it will allow you to maintain a relatively constant amount of used space in the garden. So you can run it at closer to capacity than if you're doing a traditional start with small plants and let them get large.
So, Grubby, is it always the best idea to do a perpetual kind of thing?
No, it's more an alternative. There are some situations where one style has advantages over the other, and you just need to take a look at your needs and your garden and figure out which way works better for you.
Well, thank you for explaining that, Grubby. But now I gotta admit, I'm feeling hungry, and you know what time it is.
Oh, you're right, Herb. It's time for Meals and Munchies.
Oh, cool! What are we making today?
Well, I thought today we'd whip up a little onion soup. Onion soup is one of my favorite peasant dishes. It's primarily onions. It's relatively cheap, and if made correctly, it can be quite good.
All right, Grubby, but I gotta admit, most of the onion soup I've had is pretty much just an excuse to eat the bread and cheese.
Well, it is kind of time-consuming to make it right, but when you do make it right, it's definitely worth eating. To start with, you get a bunch of onions. I like to, if I'm making a big batch, I'll get a 10-pound bag of onions. And then you want to go ahead and, cut the ends off and peel them and cut them into strips and put them in a, large cooking pot. And don't panic. You don't have to start with 10 pounds of onions. I made it successfully not very long ago with, I think I picked up 4 or 5 onions and chopped them up and you go through the same sort of process and just scale it whichever direction depending on how many onions you have and how much soup you want to wind up with at the end of it. Anyway, so cut up your onion into strips and cook it in a little bit of butter, and you're trying to cook it down until it's translucent. And then what you're going to do is add a cup of water and let the water over a medium heat kind of boil and cook off until you get a brownish, crusty stuff starting to form, and then add another cup of water and use that to scrape off all the yummy goodness, brown bits that are on the bottom. And then you're just going to repeat that process a couple of times where you're browning the onions and then adding water, scraping the bottom of the pan, mixing it up, and letting it reduce. And you're going to want to reduce it 3 times or so. And by reducing it over and over like this, what you're doing is you're really bringing out the lily aspect of the onion, and you're getting rid of that astringent onion-like flavor. And they will actually turn really pretty sweet. And it's an interesting flavor if you're not used to it.
Grubby, I'm not that crazy about how raw onions taste, but I like this soup very much.
Thank you, Herb. And as you're going through the adding water and reducing, keep in mind what you're trying to do is you're trying to go for a golden brown and a very caramelized type onion base. You want to keep an eye on it, and you don't want to let it burn. It can get a little darkish, but you can't actually burn it or you'll ruin it.
Well, gee, Grubby, it's a good thing that you told me that before, because that way I didn't try to fast forward through that parts too much, and I just used some that I made earlier.
Now, once you're satisfied with the level of golden gooey yumminess, then what you're going to do is go ahead and either add broth or add water and a little bit of bouillon and mix that up, and that's going to be your actual soup part. And then traditionally you'll take that and spoon it into small crocks or something and top with a bit of toast and then sprinkle cheese on it and slip it under the broiler just enough to melt the cheese on top, and then serve immediately hot. And yeah, it makes a really nice, cool winter type meal. Another nice thing about onion soup is it freezes well. So if you make a large batch, you can freeze most of it, and then that way you don't have to eat the onion soup till you get sick of it.
Well, no, Grubby. The soup's pretty good. It doesn't taste like onions at all. It's just kind of a sweet, warm bit of winter sunshine in my belly.
Thanks, Herb. I think I got some pictures of the last time I made them, so tell you what, I'll put them up on the blog, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to get a hold of me, either at grubbycup.com or care of this station at dfzradio.com.
Oh, hey, Grubbycup, you told me to remind you not to forget to tell people about the contest for the General Hydroponics Power Grower. It's really exciting, and the contest is almost over.
Oh, that's right. We only have a week or so left until the end of the contest. Gentle listeners, if you'd like to enter for a chance to win a General Hydroponics Power Grower hydroponic system, go to the Grow with Grubbycup Facebook page and select the giveaway link for information on how you can raid Smokey's prize pit.
And Grubbycup, I heard Smokey talking while he was asleep, and I think that in the next contest, they said there's going to be some Dewey Misters in it, and that'll be exciting too.
Well, that is good news. And once again, a very special thanks to General Hydroponics for the Power Grower, and in advance, the Dewey Mister folks for a couple of Dewey Misters for the next contest. More details on that later. You're listening to the Grow with Grubbycup show. I am your host, Grubbycup Stash, and you're listening to us on dfzradio.com. Welcome back. You're listening to the Grow with Grubbycup show. I'm your host, Grubbycup Stash, and you're listening to us on dfzradio.com. Don't forget to visit the Grow with Grubbycup Facebook page and enter the contest for a chance to win a General Hydroponics Power Grower. The contest ends this week, so don't delay in getting your entries in.
And now, a few words from the Irreverend Job.
Hi there, friends. This is the Irreverend Job, and I would like to talk to you for just a few moments, if I may. Now, brothers and sisters, today is the last day of the year. And that means we're putting another year to rest, and we're starting off on a new adventure with a new year. Now, friends, in the upcoming year, in this new year that has not yet been tarnished, I'm going to ask you a favor. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I'm going to ask you a favor, and if you do this favor, then that's going to be a nice thing for me. It's going to be a nice thing for you. It's going to be a nice thing for the people around you. Now, in 2014, at some point, you are going to be faced with a situation. It's going to look you straight in the eye. It's going to be a situation, and you're going to be feeling frustrated because things aren't going your way. Or something somebody said is going to rub you the wrong way, and you're going to be feeling a mite peckish or maybe even a little cranky. Now, this favor that I'm going to ask of you today is that when that time comes and you're feeling a little frustrated, you're feeling a little peckish, you're feeling a little cranky, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to take the opportunity to not be an asshole. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, because I know that some of you are on different places on that path. I know that some of you are just starting out, and I know that some of you have gone a little ways. So for those of you that think you have a handle on that skill of not being an asshole, I'm going to ask you to take that next little step, and I'm going to ask you to occasionally be nice. Now, I know for some of you that's a step. That's a leap that's a bit beyond some of you right now, and I understand that, so don't worry if you're not up with the advanced kids. This here is one of those each according to their abilities type of things. Now, if you're not up to being nice to somebody, if you're still trying to master the art of not being an asshole, then work on that. That's all right. If you could just successfully do that, if enough people could successfully do that, then the world would be a much better place. Now, I know what some of you are saying. I know that some of you that sit way, way in the back, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Irreverend Job, that ain't gonna happen. I've had some people come up to me and they say, Irreverend Job, I try not to be an asshole, and I fail miserably. It's just the way I am. To those of you, I say, don't give up hope, don't give up. You can work on just trying to be less of an asshole, and I think that will be a step in the right direction too. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I know what some of you are thinking right now. Right now, you're thinking, Irreverend Joe, but what about those that are left? What about those that are left that don't have the ability to try? Well, to those I say, friends, to those people that cannot even be bothered to try, to them I have a different favor to ask.
I'm gonna ask them people, I'm gonna ask the people that can't be bothered to try to do me a little favor. I'm gonna ask them to stay as far away from me and my friends and the people I work with and the people I know as possible. I won't like to invite them someplace else, preferably very far away. I don't want you in my life. I don't want you in my friends' lives. I don't want you influencing the lives of other people. This has been a message from the Irreverend Job, and I hope each and every one of you has a wonderful New Year's Eve. Remember to keep moderation in mind, and if you're gonna do one thing in 2014, then again I entreat upon you to don't be an asshole, or at the very least try not to be one as often.
And let's all think on that with this week's Moment of Meditation. This week's Moment of Meditation is brought to you by the La Mancha Safety Council. Remember, safety first, last, and preferably during. And now, just sit back, relax, let the worries from the day drift from your body, and breathe. In with the good air,
And out with the bad air.
One more time. And in with the good air.
And out with the bad air.
It is I, the Sheriff of Roaring Pork, and I'm here to say stop in the name of the King.
Oh, jeez. What now?
The last segment by the Irreverent Job has been deemed offensive to some listeners.
Yeah, I thought he was pushing it a little bit with the profanity, but he's irreverent and it's profane, so it's kind of hard to get him to keep control on that.
No, that's not the problem. The problem is it may offend those listeners who are agents of meanness. It's slanderous.
But the irreverent doesn't like the agents of meanness. I don't like the agents of meanness. Truth be told, I don't think the agents of meanness like themselves very much. I think that's part of what makes them mean.
Nonetheless, I've got my eye on you, and I've got another eye on the Irreverent Job. And now I'm off to spread misery everywhere.
Hey, all right, maybe I should have watched your door.
And now I'm off to spread misery everywhere.
And in with the good air. And in with some more good air. Maybe a little more.
And out with the bad air.
And in with the good air.
And out with the bad air.
Oh, Signor Grubbycup! Signor Grubby!
Oh, hey, Sancho. What's up?
Well, I was in the village because I was trying to get a copy of the Clonex 2014 calendar.
Oh, I haven't seen them yet, but I heard they came out nice this year.
Anyway, While I was at the village, there was a package for you, so I picked it up, and here it is.
Oh, cool. Look, it's a sample of Mapito. I think Mapito. It is a combination of shredded rock wool and something called PU flakes. And no, I don't know what PU flakes are, but I'll be looking that up. So I'll get back to you on that.
Ooh, see, they say it is very popular in Europe.
Well, tell you what, let's set it up and let's try a little.
All right, what do we do first?
Well, let's see. The instructions are to soak it for a half hour in some slightly acidic water to lower the pH a little. So that's what we'd start with.
All right, what are we going to do after that?
Well, tell you what. Let's take a bucket and we'll take, we'll use the Dewey Mister. We'll take a Dewey Mister and hook that up to an air line and an air pump and put it in the bottom of the bucket. And then we'll put a little mesh cup on top with some of the Mapito. And let's see if we can find some plants and see if we can get this to work.
All right, that sounds like fun. I'll let you know how I make out.
All right, Sancho. And when you get a chance, take pictures and we'll put them up on grubbycup.com under the blog.
Ooh, that sounds like an excellent idea. Arriba!
Okay, now, where were we? Good evening. Okay, I guess it doesn't matter where we were because we're not going back. Hi, Alfred.
Ew, Grubbycup.
Yes, Alfred?
I hear that the Orange Knight is going to do laundry this evening.
Well, okay.
Yes. He said he was going to tie one on tonight.
I'm not sure he was talking about laundry.
Really? I thought he said he was going to get shirt-faced.
Are you sure he said shirt?
I believe he said he was going to find someone to have socks with.
Well, I guess it depends what he meant.
That's not very funny, sir. You really shouldn't say things like that. And now, for a few words from our sponsors.
Brought to you in part by
Big Bubba Bob's Bait Shack. We got the best bobbers in Bingham.
Bring in your equipment and we'll check out your rod.
We got big buckets of bait.
Where we always take the time to help you with your flies.
And boats. We got big boats.
Also brought to you by
Dihydrogen oxide.
You better put it in you. And don't forget to pick up a copy of Grubbycup's Garden Notes, available on Amazon and in fine hydroponic stores nationwide. You're listening to the Grow with Grubbycup show. I'm your host, Grubbycup Stash. You're listening to us on the DFZ Radio Network at dfzradio.com. Welcome back. You're listening to the Grow with Grubbycup show. I'm your host, Grubbycup Stash, and you're listening to us on dfzradio.com.
Hey, Grubby! I would just like to take a moment and say that I want to thank all the general listeners and all the general readers that have been very supportive this year, and tell them that you will really appreciate if they hung around for next year, too.
Absolutely, Herb. It's been a lot of fun doing the show and doing the writing and all the stuff that I do, and it wouldn't be possible without the support of gentle listeners and gentle readers. So I'd like to take this opportunity and thank you very much for the past year and hope that you all stick around for next year.
Yes, very nice. We appreciate you.
Thank you, each and every one of you. Thank each and every one of you.
Sí. Gracias, amigos.
Psst. Hey, you. Yeah, you. Thanks.
All the buds of the circle table want to wish you and yours a very nice new year. And just as a random tip, if you're making sweetened drinks, if you take a cup of water and you boil a cup of sugar into it and let it cool, that'll make what's known as a simple syrup. And it's nice for sweetening drinks because it has a smooth sweetness to it, and you don't get that crystal granular type sensation that you will if you just use regular sugar.
Well, gee, Grubby, that might come in handy to know later.
And please, if you drink, don't drive. This has been the Grow with Grubbycup show. I'm your host, Grubbycup Stash. You're listening to us on the DFZ radio network. And that's our time for this week. So peace, love, and puka shells.
We got some seeds to grow, he'll keep you in the know. Variety to claim, so baby, what's his name? He's a man to know. He'll make your garden grow. Grubbycup's his name. He's the man who'll make a change.
Everybody have a very safe New Year's. And, safe is good. I safe. Everybody should be safe. Because, it's better than, not being safe.